I'm glad to be where I am today. I have access to a lot of resources. I have way more money than I could ever spend in my entire life. The center of the world is changing. It moved. It moved from Wall Street in New York, in Manhattan to Silicon Valley. Companies could be valued at trillions of dollars. I mean, it would be a joke when it came to the value in 2009 to say a company would ever be valued at $1 trillion, right? Crypto is a center of talent. The best and the brightest minds in the world are going here. What has changed with crypto? Programmers are actually creating money. If you've been following the news, there was a guy called Metacoven, who was a mysterious, secretive guy. Nobody knew who he was. And he paid $69 million to buy an NFT, a non-fungible token. $69 million, it's a very expensive joke. To buy a painting. He's now a billionaire, a pure crypto billionaire. Founder of this religion is a mysterious man whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. Till today, nobody knows who he is. He started this thing called Bitcoin. He's worth $35 billion for founding Bitcoin. That was the solution that Satoshi came up with. That was sort of the breakthrough in computer science. The biggest Ethereum currency is called Uniswap. It is valued at $40 billion today. And, it started as a 300 line of code project by a developer over a weekend. Just a brief introduction to myself. Actually, I'm going to maybe spend 5-10 minutes talking about myself because, I want to give you guys the story and the context behind, why this is important to me and where I come from. So, I am just like many of you guys who are at interview bit or whatnot. I started out as a programmer, deeply fell in love with computers and computer science and did a lot of programming contests. I was ranked 1 in India, top coder, twice ACMI CPC world finalist, twice Google Code Jam world finalist. So did really well at these programming contests, right? That's the thing that I enjoyed the most. And, that's what I wanted to do. And, my first job was at Microsoft Bing on distributed systems. My code was running on hundreds of thousands of machines. I thought that would be the cool thing, right? That's the most technically challenging thing. And I sort of joined Microsoft, but then sort of got the big company training, which is basically, hey, listen, nothing much changes here. Things move pretty slowly. And then at the same time, Silicon Valley was happening. And, I left to Silicon Valley in 2009 with my co-founder, who was also my roommate while we were working at Microsoft. And, to start a company, we sort of lived and worked out of the Stanford dorms and tried starting companies. 18 months, nothing really worked. We had to sort of come back to India, spend 6 months in India, then go back on a tourist visa to the US to, keep trying, right? And after 18 months, one idea really took off like crazy. It was called Like a Little. It was sort of a social network that took off. Almost 20% of the US students were using that site at the peak. The peak happened within 6 months. It grew like crazy. In the first 6 weeks, we had around 20 million page views and it was growing like wildfire, right? And, the who's who of Silicon Valley invested, like Mark Anderson or whatnot. And Zuckerberg wanted to try to buy it. Marissa Mayer from Google tried to buy it for $100 million. And, so that was a, very important experience in my life. For the first time, I came very close to success. I've tasted sort of success. We didn't sell the company. The company failed, and it went to zero. It was sort of a social network / fad. Just like you guys might remember Foursquare. Again today it's nowhere, right? So it sort of was kind of a blip in the radar, and it failed. But it sort of showed me, hey, listen, you can succeed, not just succeed, but at a grand scale, right? And after a lot of reflection and spending a lot of time elsewhere, I came back to start this company called Rippling. Now Rippling has been very, very successful now. It was valued in our last financing round at 1.4 billion dollars, and it's growing very, very fast. So I'm glad to be where I am today. I have access to a lot of resources. I have way more money than I could ever spend in my entire life. And I consider myself extremely lucky. Now, Because if you look at the history of the world, there is always, these centers that are evolving, centers of the world that are evolving. It was, when there were painters and artists, it was France, in the 17th century. And, most recently it has been Wall Street, right? The most ambitious young minds all over the world aggregate in New York to do finance. And that's that was the most important thing that was going on in the world. And it was the center of the world. And to the extent that people like me from a very humble background, people like you and me, who are able to sort of make such huge impacts on this world and create billions and billions of dollars in wealth, it is because we are riding a very important trend in history, that the center of the world is changing. It moved from Wall Street in New York, in Manhattan, to Silicon Valley, right? And and my cohort of people, my friends who are playing that move, are getting insanely wealthy, right? So it's not really a coincidence. I mean, like, of course, my friends who are not in the technology field at all are not wealthy, right? Their living standards have improved a little bit, but just like minuscule, right? So this is centered towards technology. It is centered towards the way the world is moving from Wall Street. The center of the world is moving from Wall Street to Silicon Valley to technology. And, that is what is creating these insane fortunes. And, it's a huge move, right? Like, who thought these companies could be valued at trillions of dollars? I mean, it would be a joke, when I came to the Valley in 2009, to say a company would ever be valued at $1 trillion, right? But now, there are 5 companies or something, which are valued at $1 trillion. Like, technology companies are valued at, there are so many companies valued at hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So on the back of this trend is, where, we sort of get to make a tiny sliver of this large pie, large wealth creation pie, right? Now, I mean, we are lucky enough and fortunate enough to witness one center of the world move in our lives. If you're lucky, you would sort of witness one such thing, right? These things don't move that often. These sort of large, insane trends don't play that often. I think we're looking at the second one. The second one is crypto. Center of the world is moving one more time, and it has decisively moved. I think it has absolutely happened. In Silicon Valley, you sort of live in the future, right? You sort of know, you already have people who are sort of like already living in the future, and you understand, okay, this is how the world is going to look. Everyone else is going to live, 5 years down the line, exactly like this, right? And, what is extremely clear is, the center of the world has moved one more time. And, it has been accelerated by the crypto revolution. And, COVID has certainly helped. Things have become more distributed. You can start things anywhere you want. And, crypto is a center of talent. The best and the brightest minds in the world are going here. If I was trying to make a living again, and I was just like fresh leaving Microsoft, I would absolutely be on crypto, and my son will be on crypto. The internet changed the world. People didn't sort of realize it at that time, but, it completely changed the world. Again, if you're providing an internet service, the lowest cost, the best product, regardless of geography, is able to win. It is completely interconnected, these regional markets, into sort of one central market. And, like, it's sort of as important as the steam engine. And we are sort of riding on the back of that. This whole tech wave is sort of happening on the back of that, right? This unlocking of potential everywhere in the world. Like, a guy like me creating $1 billion in wealth, it's sort of enabled by the internet, that, people from all across the world can sort of, have this level of leverage, right? Now, all of us, got, so the tech boom happened, and all of us sort of got fabulously wealthy. So, there was a saying that programmers made a lot of money, right? What has changed with crypto is actually programmers are actually creating money. it's not like, you may, someone else creates the money and pays you. Now, now programmers can actually create the money. And it is the most exciting thing that's happening in the world. It is relatively new. It is started in 2008, but it has seen many, many crypto winters. It is attracting some of the smartest and the best minds in the world, and it is going to continue to attract the best in our generation. And it's going to produce the next Rockefellers. The first trillionaire in the world will be created in crypto. So let's talk more about this. So, I gave you a lot of stories about, like, people, friends who created a lot of wealth in my circle, right? But those stories really dwarf what I'm going to tell you, what I'm going to show you right now. It's absolutely mind blowing. If you've been following the news, there was a guy called Metacoven, who was a mysterious, secretive guy. Nobody knew who he was. And he paid $69 million to buy an NFT, a non-fungible token, which is an artwork done by a guy called Beeple. And, this guy, paid $69 million. 69 is sort of like a joke, right? Elon Musk sort of keeps talking about the number 69. So this guy paid $69 million. It's a very expensive joke to buy a painting. And, nobody knew who he was. They were searching for him all over the world. And, this guy is actually a friend of mine for, 10 plus years. I've known him. He's from Chennai. His name is Vignesh Sundaresan. And, we've been friends for like 10 plus years now. He and another college roommate of mine worked together on a startup in Chennai. So, he's not from that far away. And, a guy who, he's now a billionaire, a pure crypto billionaire, right? And, he sort of paid like $69 million as the most expensive joke in the world. And, for a while, people were trying to figure out who he really was. So, the story of this guy is even more insane, even more extraordinary and unbelievable, right? He's a Tamil guy, and this is his track record. He was nothing 8 years ago. He had to a total $10,000 in his name 8 years ago. And he's now a billionaire. And he's not a billionaire because, he went out and created companies or whatever. He's a billionaire because he made the right crypto investments. He bought, he sort of introduced me to Bitcoin in 2013. He was all in. He had $10,000 at the time. He was all in on Bitcoin. And, that's 1,000x. It would be a bigger multiple if not for the other things that he did. He did many things in this 8 years, but the three most important decisions that, made him who he is, he bought Ethereum for 50% of his money at the time at the initial coin offering. And that's 100,000x for him, right? He told me to buy Ethereum for various reasons. I'll tell you, I don't want to go into, I didn't buy it, what a sucker I am, for missing that. I thought, hey, my company Like a Little has like so many users. We were valued at 40 million. This new bullshit thing called Ethereum is also valued at 40 million. Like, my company is worth more than that. How wrong was I? So, that was 100,000x for him. It is a religious movement. It's sort of like Christianity to some extent. The saying in crypto is HODL, hold on for dear life. It is sort of, you don't sell, you're in it for the religion. And, we'll talk about why. And it is not often that you hear religion and technologies in sort of the same sentence. Actually, but if you zoom in enough, if you read Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 book, most technology companies, the most important movements are actually cults, right? People in it sort of believe in it like it is a religion. And it gets crazy and crazy. The founder of this religion is a mysterious man whose name is Satoshi Nakamoto. And, till today, nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows, like where he is, who he is. He started Bitcoin, right? And, Satoshi is a genius, a complete genius. He started this thing called Bitcoin. He's worth $35 billion for founding Bitcoin, right? Not for founding Bitcoin, but he was the only guy who was mining Bitcoin for a while. And, as a result of that, he's worth $35 billion today, right? Nobody knows who he is. He has not moved a single coin from the 35 billion. So he's not spent, like any money from that, so he's not gotten wealthy at all. He's not spent a single dollar from this invention, right? Which absolutely changed the world, which is worth like, $1.3 trillion. And, you can imagine like how much, people are trying to search and find where the heck is Satoshi, and nobody knows. He's an absolute genius. And that is sort of, where this religious movement is coming from. That is where, this movement is sort of getting a sense of religion that, hey, listen, Satoshi was so selfless, which like, it's sort of almost like an act of God. People are speculating, what the fuck, these things cannot happen, right? Like, if you're a human, what are you motivated by? You might be motivated by fame. Of course, Satoshi was not, he didn't reveal who he was. You still don't know. You can't find out. You can be motivated by money. Of course, Satoshi was not. He is still not, spent a single dollar from his fortune, right? So, you don't even understand what his motivations are. Certain important changes in history are so weird that it's sort of like, people speculate it's just an act of God or something, right? So that's where this mysterious religious roots of this whole movement is coming from, is from the selfless founder, who did it for the world. And if you look at the first block of Bitcoin, it has a New York Times article from 2009. Bitcoin was launched in 2008, and the first block of Bitcoin has this New York Times article which says Federal Reserve bails out Wall Street for the fourth time. And Bitcoin was a rebellion to that, right? It is sort of starting with a mission statement saying, hey, America, the most powerful country in the world, the most powerful currency in the world, the US dollars, this is a rebellion against you, right? This is the rebellion against state control of money. This is sort of the free world, and we are going to start it. And that's the religion that people are, passionately drawn into. This problem was unsolved for 25 plus years. It was one of the hardest computer science problems. And people are imagining, a lot of different algorithms where, you want to attain consensus really fast, right? This is database, you're sort of talking sub-millisecond latencies. And how do you attain consensus really fast? People are thinking, along those lines for 20, 25 plus years. And then Satoshi came in and, he solved this problem. This anonymous guy, who just like published this paper and solved this problem. And that paper was not accepted or sent to any conference, right? In academia, you're not anonymous. You're doing it for the name. But, this guy came in and solved the problem. And it's very interesting, the way he solved it is by sort of taking an opposite approach. Everyone was trying to attain very quick consensus, but Satoshi came in and said, took the opposite approach and said, consensus is going to take 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, right? And that is mind blowing in a database land. Like, for people to agree on a state, taking 12 hours is sort of like, mind blowing. But that was the solution that Satoshi came up with. That was sort of the breakthrough in computer science. The mind blowing part is he sort of did this computer science breakthrough and immediately started this currency called Bitcoin. Like, what, Bitcoin is a major marvel in economics, right? So you not only had someone who solved this amazing computer science problem, he also sort of solved this economics problem and, created the system called Bitcoin, right? And this is sort of, a major, like unexpected event, so, and it's valued at $1.3 trillion today. Just going back to the history of money, what is money, at a very fundamental level is, before this, we used to do barter. I had wheat, you had sugar. I came with you with my wheat and you gave me your sugar, right? And the issue with that is, you don't have a sugar harvest yet. Wheat grows in winter season, sugar grows in summer season, let's say. Now I need to store my wheat till you have sugar till summer, and then a lot of my wheat rots. You're hungry because your family is hungry because you don't have wheat yet. All these problems happen, right? So to sort of just replace these two edges of a barter system with just one edge. So instead, if I had money, I sold my wheat today and and got money, I sort of move my purchasing power to the future. And when it's summer, when you have a sugar harvest, I come back with the money and I buy your sugar, right? So that's the reason for money to evolve as an exchange mechanism. It's just much more efficient than barter. And for a while, many countries sort of created money based on gold. Gold was sort of the international currency for a while. People somehow naturally agreed on that unit of exchange. Gold doesn't have any sort of other fundamental value, right? It was just shiny, and everyone started agreeing to use it as a unit of tracking money, and it worked for many centuries. And if you look at history, Rome was one of the most successful empires, and they would print money based on gold. They would say, hey, listen, 10 Roman money is redeemable for 10 units of gold, 10 grams of gold. And then once a recession hits, then the emperor would say, no, now it's redeemable only for 5 grams of gold. And then they'll create a lot more currency and everyone will feel rich. And then the next recession will hit, and then they'll say, oh, it's now redeemable only for 2 grams of gold, right? So this is called currency debasing, and it happens over and over again, and it has happened in history several times. The most recent debasing that we're all seeing is like the money supply in the US. It was $8 trillion in 2008 after the recession. So in the 2008 recession, when Satoshi sort of fought against, created Bitcoin, fighting against the establishment, the total money supply in the US was $8 trillion, and US printed $1 trillion to sort of bail out the banks and rescue the economy. And that was what Satoshi fought against. In 2020, when coronavirus happened and economy fell into a recession, in 2020 alone, within 3 months, the US printed $8 trillion in new money supply, right? This is just like happening in epic proportions. It is sort of similar to the Roman debases. And fiat money, throughout history always crashes within a couple of centuries, right? It is if one thing is predictable, it is that the fiat money gets debased and it crashes, right? The longest time the fiat money sort of lived was in China. For 2 centuries, it was alive. During the dynasty of Ming, it was the world superpower for 2 centuries. The dynasty of Ming, it was the richest, it was the center of the world at the time. And, it survived for 2 centuries, right? So that was the longest that fiat money has always survived in history. And, the US dollar is going through, a similar movement. And it's sort of happening all around the world. Usually when these sort of crashes happen, it's not isolated to the US, like every country sort of starts following it. And, sooner or later it comes to an end, right? Now coming back to how this stands, with the steam engine and the internet, countries are now, becoming irrelevant because internet is sort of connecting across countries, and COVID and crypto are sort of like great accelerators in this, right? Now, on the internet, a big primitive that was missing was money. And people have been trying to create internet money for a long time. It is actually an important component of making the internet work. I mean, imagine how many spam mails you're getting, right? But the right protocol for email, if the right protocol for email is to attach a tiny, like 1 cent with every email that people send, then you can just solve the spam problem. You can solve the spam requests problem, right? Just one case study is, there was a guy who bought this company called BitTorrent. Many people have used torrents here, right? BitTorrent, he bought it for $100 million, right? And it is a protocol where you sort of exchange files and share stuff and all that, right? And he transformed it by introducing a native token within Bitcoin called BitTorrent token, where, when I give you some information, you give me some BitTorrent tokens, right? So we sort of keep the BitTorrent token blockchain as a unit of account for how much I have helped others, versus how much others are helping me. If I take others' help, I spend some token. If I'm helping others, then I gain some tokens, right? So there is this ledger called BitTorrent token, which is now worth $8 billion. He bought it 3-4 years ago for $100 million as a native internet product, and now that has been transformed into $8 billion product, right? It is kind of obvious. You would want to keep track of these things, right? Now I'm going to talk about the future. So, Ethereum, this happened in 2010, 2011. This is the first general purpose database. Bitcoin stored only Bitcoin is a distributed database, but it stored account to balance data. That's it, right? Ethereum, you store the state of an arbitrary virtual machine called the Ethereum virtual machine. The virtual machine has some data that it can store, and you just stored it, right? It's a global computer. So code is law in this territory, and you don't need to trust anyone. And for the first, that's the biggest breakthrough after Bitcoin, because if you have a DB, then you might as well create a general purpose database, right? And that has created a Cambrian explosion in this space. It has just, the world has changed since then. Since 2010, it's been 10 years. So what has happened in these 10 years? So there is this huge wave called DeFi. DeFi is a short form for decentralized finance. It has completely taken over Ethereum. And this is the new Wall Street. Like Wall Street is literally, their business is moving into Ethereum, right? Because you are replacing all these trusted middlemen with trustless middlemen, which is basically Ethereum, right? And, there are infinite new currencies and coins that have been created since. There is a class called ERC20. It's a base class in Ethereum that supports creating a new coin. So it's, if you want to create a new coin, it's as simple as deriving this base class and implementing a few functions in Ethereum, and you have a new currency, right? At a fundamental level, a new currency is just a mapping, is just a hash map from an address to balance, how much balance that address public key holds, right? And some rules around how to earn it or spend it. It's a unit of account where, it is sort of a new network where if you add value to the network, you can earn the currency. And if you sort of take away value from the network, you need to spend the currency. That's all it is. That's all currency is at the end of the day. And in Ethereum land, it's just a base class that you derive, and you have an address to balance mapping, and you can define the rules of how to earn or spend the currency. So I say Wall Street, right? The biggest Ethereum currency is called Uniswap. It is valued at $40 billion today. And, it started as a 300 line of code project by a developer over a weekend, right? So, again, we're talking about, and it was founded only a year back, right? So, and it's now valued at $40 billion. How many people have heard of it? So it's not that much of a household name like Twitter is. Twitter is probably valued at $40 billion as well, but more people have heard of Twitter than Uniswap. Now, what is Uniswap again? So Uniswap is an automated market maker. So let's say you have Ethereum and Bitcoin, and you want to trade some Bitcoin for Ethereum. So this is a program. This is a similar class which lets you swap between Ethereum and Bitcoin or any two currencies, right? And it is going to give you a quote. So it is sort of an automated market maker, and for making the markets for you. So it buys and sells Bitcoin and Ethereum or like any other currency. And to trade with it, it'll charge you a 0.05% fees, right? Now again, like when you trade in your with your broker, they charge way more fees than this, right? But because Wall Street is becoming commoditized, because code is doing this market making, it charges only like 5 basis point fees. And those fees don't go to the founders or some company. It goes to the whole people who hold these tokens, the Uniswap tokens, right? So, for the first time, there is something called a DAO that's introduced. A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. Anyone who holds a Uniswap token, gets to govern how Uniswap works. They decide how to change the code, how to upgrade the code, what fees to charge, what to do with the fees that the company earns, and nobody knows who the shareholders of this company are. The people only know the public keys who hold these shares.
the Uniswap tokens, but nobody, this is completely autonomous and it's decentralized. It's not sort of people sitting in a room and making decisions. Boardroom is just some internet anonymous forums, right? So that is how crypto tokens work. It's decentralized. It is an autonomous organization, right? And just look at how big it is now. Like there is $8 billion worth of liquidity, on Uniswap, and you can see that it only started in May 2020. There was only $14 of liquidity, right? And you can see the rate at which it's growing. It's now at $8 billion. In the last 1 hour alone, last 24 hours, there was $1.43 billion of liquidity, that was sort of exchanged in this. So that is the sort of rate of growth that we're talking about here, right? This is just insane. This is the new Wall Street, and we live in an age of infinite leverage, where within a year you can create $40 billion of wealth. And anyone, any anonymous person can participate in this wealth creation, can buy these tokens and share a part of the wealth creation. There is a similar thing called Compound, which is the largest internet bank. So you can deposit your crypto and you can borrow US dollars or like other assets in the smart contract on top of Ethereum. And today, for example, you get 8% per year to sort of deposit your assets, or 10% per year to borrow from there. They provide higher interest rates than your bank account. And this also runs on negative unit economics, right? You get 4% per year of Compound tokens for vesting, for sort of depositing or borrowing. So imagine a bank that's losing money. It would go out of business very soon, because because it is just running into infinite losses. But in this case, it becomes the largest bank in the world, because the way it's losing money, it's not losing money in US dollars. It's just giving out more of its own company tokens to its users, right? So it can't go bankrupt, because the users are holding these tokens. And because of that, they're incentivized to deposit assets or borrow assets from this bank, and it becomes one of the biggest banks in the world. Again, if speculators come in and double the price of the bank, then instead of 4% per year in bank equity, you sort of end up getting 8% per year, right? In USD denominated terms, if the price of the bank tokens double, then you get more interest rate. So because of higher interest rate, more assets come in and get supplied to the bank, and it becomes a bigger bank, right? So that is how speculators create these economics, and and that is how these things become one of the largest banks in the world, largest market makers in the world, and so on. So this is the idea of network effect, right? So in a network effect business, like what actually happens is companies are VC funded. In the beginning, they lose a lot of money. They're almost in negative unit economics. And, till then, they're so very nice to their users. They're always losing their money and so on, losing their own money and being very nice to users. And once they become a monopoly, they can set the terms, they can change the prices, right? And the early investors, the VCs, benefit from that, right? You have the Facebook, you have, whatnot. Like most network effect businesses work that way. And, Peter Thiel had this interesting sort of question: is innovation constrained by founders or by demand, right? And China took the position that it's actually constrained by demand. So China sort of famously walled off its internet, and it said, I don't need a Zuckerberg. A new Zuckerberg will automatically spring up within China, and they did, right? And India lost out on that. China sort of had created all this wealth internally. The Facebook of China is some Chinese network. The Amazon of China is some Chinese network, and so on. So the network effects, they were able to protect their network, the Chinese network, and and keep much of the wealth that got created within those network effects, right? And and crypto is the first effective weapon against this sort of network effect businesses, because it is open, and you can have open speculators who are targeting the global markets, who are sort of funding these network effects from all over the world. And because the equity is so open, because these prices of these tickers change every second, every day, everything plays out way faster, right? To create a Facebook, it took 10 years. To create a Uniswap, it took 10 months, right? These feedback loops run, on steroids on the crypto ecosystem. So you can imagine a Uber for it. You can imagine, why do you need a Uber company, right? Why can't the taxis talk directly with the passengers? Why do you need a company in between? You could have a network where if you added value to the network, you get paid. The taxi sort of drivers get paid. If you took away value from the network, if you took the rights, then you sort of pay those tokens. And there could be token speculators who are subsidizing creating of these network effects in the beginning and who are benefiting from these network effects in the end. And it could be an open ecosystem where a Uber happens, or an electricity grid does not need to be a company, right? It could be a peer-to-peer accounting ledger. If you contributed electricity into the grid, you get paid. If you took away electricity, you sort of lose some tokens, right? Similarly, Airbnb, similarly Instacart, Amazon, everything is going to get rebuilt. It is a certainty that all of these are going to get rebuilt on crypto. The question is just a matter of when. It is not an if. These companies are not going to exist in 20 years. These companies are going to be crypto native. That is a certainty. Indians can play a big role. Indians sort of missed out on the internet revolution because we are always this open country, right? Like, we speak English, and the Facebook of India turned out to be Facebook. Unlike China, which sort of played a closed network game, we didn't sort of, it was, culturally it wasn't palatable to us. That's not the way sort of we work. But crypto is one such way where we are sort of like more culturally aligned. And I think Indians are going to play a big role in this ecosystem. They could. It's an opportunity. I'm personally planning to mentor 10-20 people who are sort of really good engineers who want to get into the blockchain space. And I'm collaborating with InterviewBit to start a blockchain specific program. I'm very excited about India because India has like enormous pools of talent who can do heavy infrastructure work, heavy scaling work, the kind of work that blockchain needs, who are making very little money today, right? They don't have the same kind of access to create these billions of dollars, that have traditionally been enjoyed by Silicon Valley. And crypto is going to change that. The only sort of kink in the armor is like, I wish government was more supportive. The Indian government, it's a huge opportunity for Indians, but the government is sort of trying to ban crypto and stuff. Anyway, my email address is myprasanna@gmail.com, and feel free to reach out to me. I would love to share some materials, maybe by email or something, with readers. There is a really good resource called How to Build Your Own Blockchain by Hasib Qureshi. And there are these amazing materials to learn about Cosmos SDK and Substrate, which is sort of the Django and the Ruby on Rails of this blockchain development land. They have pretty good resources of how you can get started. You can learn about Solidity, which is Ethereum's native programming language. Definitely, there's a lot of interesting things happening. The one that I am sort of most bullish on right now is a coin called Atom. It's Cosmos. Cosmos is sort of like the Python Django, the Django framework of crypto. It lets you build your own blockchain. It's not cheap. It's worth like $5 billion. But there are some of the major biggest crypto projects are built on top of that. The ticker name is Atom. So I'm very bullish on Atom related to other coins. I'm also, I hold a lot of Ethereum. I think it's the Wall Street of crypto of the world. That has already been proven out. Ethereum is already worth $300 billion. So that's not, that's not going to give the next 10x or 100x. I'm also bullish on Polkadot and this coin called Near. Near is sort of a sharded Ethereum. I know the founders personally, and they're AC my CBC World finalists, so they're building a really good blockchain. So these are some of my holdings. These are most of my holdings, pretty much. a lot of Cosmos, a lot of Ethereum, Polkadot, and Near.